Hey guys, it's been a long time since I've done an insulator hunting video. It's probably been a little over a month. It's been a while since I've hunted, but I'm here pretty close to my house. I'm just about a mile away from my house actually right now. I'm on the tracks of the Midland Valley Railroad Company. This line was abandoned in 1986, and I recently discovered from some aerial photos from 1956 that the telegraph poles were on the north side of the tracks. So I'm down here in the ditch on the north side of what was the railroad tracks that have been abandoned for about 36 years now. And I'm gonna search for insulators. I really doubt I'll find anything today. I'll probably go ahead and post this video even if I don't find anything, just because it's been so long since I posted a video. My buddy Rob and I went on a hunt about a month ago. It was very successful, and I put some pictures of some stuff we found, some old cutouts and stuff on the Insulator Hunters page on Facebook. But I'm here by 141st Street here in Bixby right now, close to where I live. East Central just changed the pole out here recently. There's left an old fuse barrel laying on the ground, fuse still in it. But I'm not gonna take it. Of course, I run those all the time. But anyway, so I'm gonna walk along this ditch here on the north side of the tracks now that I know that this is where the pole line ran, was on the north side. That was really useful information to me because I wasn't really sure where the telegraph line was originally at. But now that I know, I can come out here and look where the pole line would have been and see if I can at least find some stumps and stuff. I have been out here before, and even if I don't find any insulators, I'll go ahead and post this video because I'm going to show you some abandoned railroad tracks that have been left behind with the rails intact, and they start up here in a few hundred yards. So I'll at least show you all those if I don't find any insulators or shards of insulators at least. Walked a ways now. No signs of insulators or even any remains of the telegraph line yet. Basically, this track was it was built by the Midland Valley Railroad in 1904. This section I'm on went from Tulsa to Muskogee, Oklahoma. It was bought by the Texas and Pacific Railroad in 1964. And Texas and Pacific merged into the Missouri Pacific Railroad, I believe in the late 60s or early 70s. And Missouri Pacific merged into the Union Pacific Railroad in, I believe, the early 80s. And here's where the rails start up right here, guys. So it's kind of weird. You're literally just walking through the woods here on this abandoned grade. And out of nowhere, you'll start noticing the ties are still in their places. You'll start noticing the plates. And right here's where the rails start up. And there's the other side right here. So there's actually track still in place right here, way out here in the middle of the woods, away from the road. Pole line would have been on this side of the tracks. But anyway, the Union Pacific took over this line in the early 80s. When the Midland Valley owned this track, there was, at least back in the 20s, 30s, there was about 4 trains a day on this line. But by the time the Union Pacific took over, from what I've been told by locals, there was usually only about 1 train every 2 weeks on this line. In 1986, the Arkansas River flooded very badly and it washed, I believe 2 railroad bridges away, one in Leonard and one right up here in front of us that we might get to see here in a little bit if I make it that far. And since Union Pacific was probably going to close this line pretty soon anyway, that ended up being this line's demise, was that flood in 1986. So it's 2022 now, and this track still sits right here. As you can see, this rail is from 1921 right here. This rail, as it sits right now, is 101 years old, which is crazy. I can't believe this track is still here. This is about 300 yards off of 141st Street in Bixby, looking towards Jinx. The tracks from Jinx on back to Tulsa are still active. They're owned by the Tulsa-Sapulpa Union Railroad now, or at least they're leased by them. I'm not sure if they're owned by them or not. And they run trains from the Tulsa switchyard up to the Kimberly-Clark factory in Jinx. And I believe they run trains almost daily on it during the weekdays. This track, we're about 1.5 miles past the end of the active track on this old abandoned track. As you can see, there's trees just growing right up between the rails now. This piece of track probably hasn't seen a train in 35, 36 years at least. And there's an old abandoned road over here too. It's no longer being used. But now that I know that the pole line was on the north side of the tracks, and I know that because I looked at an aerial photo of this area from 1956, and even though that photo was that old, you could clearly see the pole line on the north side of the tracks. That's why I'm looking down here. But it looked like the photo from 1967, the aerial photo from 1967, I couldn't see the pole line. So I'm thinking the telegraph lines were wrecked out pretty early on this railroad, probably in the 1960s, probably after the Missouri Pacific took over, or even the Texas and Pacific. They probably wrecked out the old telegraph line on it. Passenger service on this line ended in 1934, so there probably wouldn't have been very many signals or anything. I don't know if this line ever had a need for AC power for signals. So I'm guessing that the early circuits, the early pole lines that ran along this tracks are probably strictly telegraph or telephone. And because of that, they were probably wrecked out very early. But I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled, and if I get lucky, maybe I'll, honestly, even if I just find a shard from this line, since this line runs from my hometown, even if I just find a shard of a Hemingway 42, I'll be happy. I'll definitely take it home, because that'll give me a piece of an insulator to remember this line by. And I've never been lucky enough to find a piece on this line. So anyway, I'll keep searching and I'll keep you guys posted. Here's an old culvert. Still not so much as a pole stump has come up. I've hunted this line many times looking for insulators. Now, I didn't know exactly where the pole line was, which is why I came back with hope. But I honestly don't think I'll find anything on this line. I think when it was removed, it was thoroughly removed, and there was very little left behind. And because that was so many decades ago, I think it'll be a very good surprise if an insulator or even a shard of an insulator comes up. That's how long this pole line's been gone. But if something comes up, I'll keep y'all posted. Well, I'm just down here in a muddy ditch now. This is kind of a weird spot because I'm right behind a very wealthy neighborhood that was built after the railroad was abandoned. But the tracks are still in place right here. But I'm literally right behind just these huge, massive houses. Walking down here in this muddy ditch that's on the side of the tracks that supposedly the pole line ran. I'm kind of just looking for remains of hardware, insulators, pole stumps. But I haven't found so much as a pole stump yet. I think what it boils down to is this line's just been removed for a very long time. When it was removed, it was thoroughly removed. Unlike some of the more modern lines where they kind of were lazy when they cut them down. I think they did a pretty good job when they removed this line. There's not a whole lot left of it. But I'm still in search of insulator. There's just even a shard of an insulator. So I'm kind of going down this ditch line now. The ditch is getting deeper and deeper because I'm coming up on this creek, and I will show you all the railroad bridge that would have went over the creek when it was in service. So I'll show you all when I get up here to it. Well, alright guys, I just made an awesome discovery. Maybe my very first Midland Valley Railroad discovery. So there's a bridge here that's capped off. And right here at the root of this tree, I found the glass insulator. It appears to be a CD128. It's a Hemingway 1952 Hemingway CD128. The whole back half, there's a big old chunk of the skirt broken off it. I'm very surprised to see a CD128 on this line. I didn't know what to expect because I've never found an insulator on this railroad before. And to be honest with you guys right now, I'm really excited because well, I've never found an insulator from this railroad before. And this is right along the track, so I don't know if this was a telegraph or maybe just an open wire telephone line that followed the same route as the tracks did or whatever. But I am on the north side of the tracks. This would have been the right spot for the pole line that served the railroad to have been. So even though I've got hundreds of insulators, I've got a lot of really good insulators. Even though this is missing half the skirt, this is a huge find for me, and I'm definitely taking this home. And I'm gonna look for some more. But it was literally right here. You saw it. I left it where it was. It was right there against that tree root. Right here on the north side of the tracks. The railroad's right up there over that bridge. There's a bridge down here. It's capped off. And this is my first ever insulator from the Midland Valley Railroad. I haven't even found so much as a pole stump, so I was honestly in complete dismay when I saw this insulator just sitting here like that. That's insane. I really don't care what kind of insulator it is and what condition it's in. And I don't see too many CD128s, so I'm putting this one in my pocket. It's going to my collection as my first souvenir from the Midland Valley. What was once a really great and proud railroad here in Oklahoma. It's now kind of, its history has been obscured, and you know, it's kind of just faded into the past. It once was a busy, active railroad that was considered a success, and you can see what it is now. It's amazing how much just trucking and just America's overall just moving to getting rid of our own manufacturing and moving to shipping in products from foreign markets has caused America's transportation system to go downhill so much. It's amazing to think that this railroad that's now sitting here inactive for 35 plus years was once a line that carried 4 trains a day, and nobody hardly knows about this line now. But I don't know, guys. I'm super happy to find this insulator, even though it's a piece I already have, and it's a very common piece and newer than what I expected. I expected to find an HGCO beehive or something. This is a little bit more modern than I thought it would be, but probably one of the later pieces that was used on this line. Possibly an open wire phone line that followed the tracks. Still, that's pretty cool. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna keep following this track, hopefully up to that bridge, and I'll show you the remains of that bridge that washed out. That was one of the reasons, you know, this line would probably be abandoned now anyway. It was one of the reasons why this line was officially closed in 1986. I haven't found anything else yet. Here's some conditions of the tracks right here. You can see there's fully grown trees growing right up by the rails or in between them. The rails are actually lifted off the ties right here, just from the decades of neglect. Just pretty crazy to see this much, just the rails still in place with this much deterioration. And this is such a short section of track that they probably won't ever remove the rails from here. So we'll just see the more decades coming on without these rails being removed, and just slow deterioration of the line. But it's just kind of crazy to see all this happening. Right here, the railroad grade's getting higher and higher, and the ditch is getting deeper and deeper. We're getting close to that creek now where that old bridge would have been. I'm keeping my eyes peeled out for remains of old stumps and telegraph poles. I really doubt they left any standing poles along this embankment right here, but you never know. It's worth a shot. Just keep my eye out looking for at least sawed off pole stumps. Alright guys, I've been following this abandoned track, and I finally arrived at the creek. You can see it's a big drop down there to the creek bed. And here's the remains of the railroad bridge right here. I haven't really taken a look at it yet. But it appears to be wood trestle coming out here. It's been gravelled over. And this would have been where the steel truss was. Yep. Wow. This is a crazy view right here, guys. So I'm on top of a stone piling right here. Here's the wood trestle looking back. There's the wood trestle looking back. It's still intact. You can see that cap right there on top of the pilings is rotten and completely split, and the whole bridge is actually sagging down. Like it comes up from the abutment right there, sags way down to this piling set here, and back up to this concrete piling here. It's obviously seen a lot better days. Even if this flood hadn't washed away this bridge, this bridge right here definitely wouldn't be up to OSHA standards or FRA's standards. But yeah, this here's the massive concrete railroad piling, and there's looking way down to the creek bed. That's about 30 foot below me. It looks closer than that, but this is a pretty big creek. This is about 30 foot below me right here. It's pretty crazy. I can't even see the other side. I was hoping this creek would be down enough I could get down there, slide down there to it, and cross it. But I don't think I'm going to be able to, because this creek looks like it's just too wide and too deep for me to get across it without getting completely soaked. So I'm not going to do that. But looking across here on the other side of the creek, there should be another concrete piling, and it might have been completely washed away in that flood of '86. But if it's not, right over there on the other side of the tracks, you go about a couple hundred yards past this creek bed, that's where the tracks start back up and they're active. They're still used to this day by the Tulsa-Sapulpa Union Railroad, and they still run trains on it daily over the week. They just take boxcars back and forth, the Kimberly-Clark factory and back. Anyway, guys, this has been an interesting day because I'm really close to home here, and I'm on a railroad line that hits really close to me because it was, you know, so close to my hometown, where I live nowadays. So this hunt's definitely been worthwhile for me, just getting to know my surroundings better. See, guys, look at this. The bridge is completely collapsed here. That piling burned or sunk in the ground or just rotted away, and this bridge is just completely collapsed down here into the side of this creek bed. And you can see the railroad tracks are literally off the ground, like the ballast is washed away. That's crazy. It's amazing what time does to stuff like this. So anyway, this will probably be the end of this video. It'd be nice to go across this creek, keep filming, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. It's crazy. There's 9 separate beams right here for this bridge. And then there's these big old planks right here. And they literally just put railroad ballast right across the top of these planks and then built the railroad on top of that. But this bridge is just completely rotted and collapsed. So all the years of neglect. Anyway, give this thing a few more decades, there ain't gonna be nothing here no more. This area will probably be completely taken over by these new neighborhoods and houses, and this railroad will probably be removed, and this bridge will probably just be torn down or rotted away into history. So I guess it's a good thing I come out here now in 2022 and record it before all that happens. But anyway, guys, this is what's left of the Midland Valley Railroad between Tulsa and Muskogee, Oklahoma, right over here by Bixby. More left than I thought there was at first. Once you get back in here and start looking, you're like, wow, I mean, there's still a lot of stuff left. But like I said, though, this is one of the few bridges that was taken out in the Great Flood of 1986, and there would have been a big steel arch that went across this creek over to another concrete piling on the other side. But it's all completely gone now, just washed away. So, but despite all that, I actually got my first glass insulator in general from the Midland Valley Railroad, or at least off the right of way of the Midland Valley Railroad. And even though it's a very common insulator, I'm very happy to keep it, because I have never found so much as a shard of an insulator from the Midland Valley Railroad, and I wasn't expecting to find one today, because the pole line along the Midland Valley was removed very early, in either the 60s or 70s. So it's surprising that I found anything left of it. The only thing that would have been better is to find a standing pole with several pole pieces on it, but I don't think there's any standing poles on this line anymore, so it would sure be cool to find some. Anyway, so I hadn't made a video in a while, so I thought I would just go out here close to my house. I've been real busy lately. I'm on call right now, so I can't really go anywhere fancy or drive anywhere, so I thought it'd be cool just to get a video of a place pretty close to my house that I hadn't explored too much. So anyway, thank you all for watching this video.